Hi, this is Matt with customcargrills.com. This video is going to be about how we make some side grills for an Audi A5. First, we start off by purchasing some OEM Foglight grills. Then what we're going to do is use a Dremel and a drill press and use this milling bit here and mill off the back of the factory grill. I've mounted the Dremel in the drill press so that there are two fixed heights. The highest height will allow me to move the part freely as I need to get to different areas, and the other height is set so that I don't cut too deep through the factory grill. You may also notice that I'm using a cloth at the base of the drill press. This allows me to move the factory part freely while not damaging it by having plastic on metal contact directly. This is the first pass that we're going to make over this area. The first part is going to be relatively rough, and then the second time that we go through this area, we're going to be smoothing it out and making it much more level. The primary objective of this first pass is simply to remove the back. You don't want to go too deep on this, but obviously you need to go deep enough to remove the backing of these 12 openings. This particular area is kind of tricky. You need to be mindful of the tabs on the back of this that will connect it to the bumper. Here's a look at our rough cut thus far. There's a lot of refining to do, but in the end we should be able to get this smoothed out pretty well. On the second pass through, you really want to keep the height the same all the way through, so that way it's going to be nice and level on the back. That's not too difficult to do on the long horizontal edges, but the connecting vertical bars are a little bit more challenging. Some of them I will accidentally cut a little too deep or a little too shallow, and you have to go through and make a couple passes to make sure you level it out the best you can. Obviously this footage has been sped up quite a bit. Overall, the first and second pass and all of the cutting that you see here in the video took me roughly an hour to accomplish per side. Once you're satisfied with how level it is, it's time to go ahead and sand the back. I like using a powered quarter sheet sander for this. Within about 5 to 10 minutes you'll get this very flat on the back and ready for a mesh installation. There are still some spots that the sander can't get into. By now, typically areas with remaining plastic that I don't want there, I'll try and make a pass through with an X-Acto knife. And now here's a look at our fully gutted Foglight grill. One of the vertical support bars was cut a little too deep, but otherwise this was done very well. All of the horizontal bars are at a good fixed depth. Please note though, this isn't going to be perfect. A little extra pitting shown here on the back is somewhat normal, but from the front it'll be barely noticeable. Now let's take a look at a comparison of the factory grill versus our now gutted one. There's actually quite a big difference now. It looks a little bit more stylish already, and we haven't even put the mesh in yet. To add a little extra style to these, I'm going to get them hydro dipped locally. For this particular one, I went with a dark carbon fiber look. The effect isn't too flashy, but it does add a little extra flair to this particular grill. For this type of modification, we're actually trying to match up something close to what Audi uses for the RS5 model. I'm using the Diamond XXL flat mesh and the gloss black powder coat. This pre-cut piece just needs to be molded a little bit to fit the contour of the factory grill. And here's kind of a sneak peek of what it's going to look like. I'm using some small cable ties and some foam to temporarily hold the mesh to the factory grill. I'm trying to make sure that the mesh is as flat up against the back of this as possible. Now that I'm satisfied with the placement and the hold of the mesh on the back of here, I'm going to use an adhesive to permanently bond the mesh to the Foglight grill. For these types of installations, I like using an adhesive called automotive goop. Obviously we don't want any of this adhesive to show through the front, so I'm using a toothpick to get the adhesive in between the diamonds and the factory grill. This is quite a tedious process, and it probably took me about an hour to do both the passenger and the driver side. I ended up doing 2 coats, and this adhesive takes about a day to fully cure. Here's the footage of me coming back the next day after this is fully cured. I just need to nip off all of the cable ties and remove the protective foam, and we should be good to go. And now here's the final result of all of the work. These take a lot of time and a lot of precision to do correctly. But in the end, I think it's worth it. It looks like a completely different part than what we started off with. I plan on offering these as a total complete finished product, as well as offering simply just the mesh itself for the do-it-yourself type person. Different types of finishes and different types of mesh could be used in this project. Feel free to contact me if there's a particular style that you're interested in. Overall, this was a fun project to work on. I hope you like what you saw, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me.